Let's talk about the SEC, because it just means more, right? It just means more in the SEC. And 5 of the top 10, as it stands right now, are from the Southeastern Conference. You got Bama at 1, Georgia at 2, LSU at 7, Florida at 8, and Tennessee at 10. Let's just start with this. Why is the SEC so consistently just elite when it comes to the recruiting trail?
They have a lot of resources, but they also win a lot of games. And in all seriousness, in recruiting, everybody talks about these different things that help in recruiting, like where this player's girlfriend is attending school or these relationships. But really, if you look at who recruits well, it's teams that win. And winning is the ultimate, and I know NIL is involved now, but I still think that winning is what it all comes down to. And if you want to find success in recruiting, sustained success in recruiting, I should say, because even with the NIL, if you're not backing it up with wins, then I don't think it's going to be a sustainable model. So I think ultimately the SEC is a very good conference. They're winning a lot of games, and they have a ton of resources, and you got to pour it into recruiting because recruiting is the lifeblood of any program.
And I think to riff on that, too, you talk about winning goes hand in hand with development. Like a lot of these kids out of high school, yes, they want to play for big-time, hardware. They want to play for national championships and win conference titles, but you look so much at what they want to do past the collegiate level. All these kids that are 5 stars or maybe high 4 stars, guarantee you some 3 stars, they want to play in the NFL. And what better way to set yourself up for the next level than to play in, let's call a spade, NFL junior in the SEC. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bama and Georgia are 1 and 2, and they've just churned out top prospects professionally. And so I'll move on there, Josh. Why is Bama and Georgia consistently dominant? Is it the NFL development? Is it the resuurces? What, in your mind, sets them apart from the rest of this group?
It started with Nick Saban at Alabama laying down the blueprint for how to succeed at a high level consistently year after year. Kirby Smart sat around and watched that. He took it all in. He understands it probably better than anybody in the country not named Nick Saban. And it starts at the bottom. It starts at the foundation of the program, which is set at the top by the head coach. And I think as long as you have a head coach that lives out his rhymes, for lack of a better term, then they're gonna believe in you. And you're seeing that machine taking place at Georgia. The machine is already in at Alabama, and Georgia is recruiting like they want to be the next great college football dynasty.
And it's wild because you look at Alabama over the years, the consistent staple in that program has been Nick Saban. Like and you just kind of, and winning, yes. And you kind of just flip the pages through the coordinators and position coaches. A lot of those guys promote out and take a head coaching job, or maybe they take another position at a lower school, group of 5 school, they have a head coach there. You see a lot of this staff changing. But
some of it works.
Consistent. Some of it works.
Some of it doesn't.
Don't work as well. But it's just interesting. And do you think that's something we're going to see with Georgia going forward? Because now they're getting to the point where Dan Lanning, defensive coordinator for them last year, takes the head coaching job at Oregon. And so they're kind of having to retool their staff year in and year out.
Everybody's trying to dip into that Nick Saban magic and find a little bit of their own. Like, look at Billy Napier at Florida. Billy Napier's a great coach. He's done some great things. But let's all, if we're being honest, part of the reason why he's there is because he falls from the Nick Saban tree, and everybody wants to implement that into their program. They want to see if they can get that rolling. So Georgia has bought in to what Kirby Smart is selling. Not only has the program, but also the recruits.
Yeah, I don't blame them. If you want to go ahead and hire best for your program, you look at who had success previously, who cares about the right things, who has the right philosophy in place in terms of recruiting and building the internal part of your program. So if I'm a head coach, if I'm an AD and I'm looking to hire my next head coach, I would start at Alabama and I would start at Georgia and try to hire one of those guys away. So it's a good strategy.
Plenty of teams are.
It's a good strategy. How hard could it be to be an AD, right? That's all you got to do. Talking about LSU, let's shift gears here just a little bit with the Tigers. Number 7 class currently, which a lot can change in 24 hours. They're number 5 this time yesterday. Number 12 class last year. The knock has always been against Brian Kelly. Well, how well does he recruit? Does he really want to recruit? It seems like he's recruiting just fine in the Bayou in his first few months there, first, calendar year there. What would be a good class ranking for them? What would be a class ranking that Tiger fans should be happy about when all the dust settles?
I think they can finish inside the top 8. I think inside the top 8, you walk away with a good feeling, but I think they're going to finish higher than that because with Desmond Rick still on the board, I think that they do end up landing him on the 22nd. And you kind of rewind this. Take a step back. Let's think about LSU's opening season game against a Florida State team that didn't even make a bowl last year. They go to Louisiana on a neutral site and play LSU, and they lose. LSU loses. Everybody thought, oh man, this Brian Kelly experiment just isn't going to work. It might not get off the ground. There was a lot of uncertainty. But what kept that class together was the fact that things calmed down in the Bayou. They started winning ball games. They started looking like a Brian Kelly team should look like. And they never lost a ton of footing in recruiting. They stayed right there with guys like Desmond Ricks. I mean, one of the weird things was losing Duron Reed to Auburn, one of their top defensive prospects on their commit list, flips to Auburn when Auburn doesn't have a head coach. But that's SEC recruiting in a nutshell.
Just
some weird things are going to happen. But overall, like you said, if you take a step back and you look at a number 12 finish last year compared to where they're at this year, I think the Brian Kelly experiment so far is right on track.
What makes them so dangerous, Josh, and you mentioned this a little bit, proof of concept. Like now, if you're a kid in the state of Louisiana, and we've seen this play out so far on the recruiting trail for the Tigers, if you're in state, you're looking for a reason to stay home.
Right.
And now Brian Kelly has given them that reason. Competed for an SEC title last year. You didn't win it, but that's why we need you to come to our school, help us get over the hump, and be back to where we expect LSU to be consistently. And so now they have proof of concept. The Tigers are dangerous.
And the local kids are buying in. Shelton Sampson, 5-star wide receiver, one of the top in the country. He committed to LSU. There was some talk about, oh, he might not be a solid commit. You never heard a peep out of his recruitment since he committed. So LSU's done a great job down the stretch, and they probably will add a little bit of firepower down on National Signing Day.
Another team that we're watching here pushing down to the very end, the Florida Gators. Number 8 class currently, Josh. Last year, number 20. In the team rankings.
Dan Mullins last year.
Dan Mullins last year. A bit of a transitional year, so we'll maybe give him a pass there. But how important is it for Florida to finish strong here as we head towards the early signing period?
It is really important for Billy Napier. You only get one chance at that first-year bump. And a lot of teams do get a bump. I mean, look, UF has already benefited from that. They're number 8 in the recruiting rankings, and they didn't even make a bowl this year. So people are believing in Billy Napier. However, they're kind of fizzling out down the stretch. We saw them miss on Samson Okunlola to in-state rival Miami yesterday. That was a huge blow to Florida. Not only a big-time player at a position in need, but somebody that they've invested a lot in. They got him on a kind of a secret visit about a month ago. Everything was kind of trending in their direction. And then all of a sudden they get him on an official visit. His last trip to any college campus before he made his decision. And now Samson Okunlola goes to Miami. It doesn't look like UF is going to be a player for Desmond Ricks. I say that because out of Desmond Ricks' recruitment or his official visit to Florida, things seemed like they were trending their way, but he still had an Alabama and LSU visit remaining. And I just knew that the momentum you got to carry through all those official visits, if you're Florida, it's going to be tough. And now you got Desmond Ricks on campus at LSU right now. I don't know if Florida can land him. I do think that they're involved in Mark Fletcher, a big-time prospect in South Florida, another one that they're going to go head-to-head with Miami at. He's a 4-star prospect, an on 300 type player, but I don't know if he's got that oomph to get him into the top 5. Sitting at 8 right now for Florida would be a solid finish. Like we just talked about, you get rid of Dan Mullen because you were sick of finishing in the top 12, 9, even in the 8 range. So I think if Billy Napier can land a top 8 class in his first year, they miss a bowl, I think that's a very good start. I think you kind of get worried if things start to fall apart here for UF down the stretch and they fall out of the top 10. That could be a concern. But right now, probably recruiting where you want them to. Of course, you'd like to see them a little bit higher, but Florida's never going to have it easy in the SEC. I mean, Billy Napier's got to go up against Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly. Then you get Texas, Oklahoma jumping in board. The SEC is a monster to recruit in. And, Billy Napier off to a good start. I wouldn't put it as a great start just yet.
It's crowded, man. It's crowded. Like you said, in the SEC, the standard is so high. It's so competitive. 5 of the top 10 teams leave. It's 8 of the top 20. And you got Ole Miss sitting there at 21. So it's such a competitive stratosphere, is that the right word to say? I mean, competitive ecosystem.
Yeah, when you're in that world,
the SEC.
And another top target right now that's going to come down to an SEC battle for UF is Jordan Hall. I shouldn't forget his name. 4-star out of Jacksonville, Florida. He's a big-time defensive lineman. And this is where you kind of start to see the balance of power and how it works out in the SEC. Georgia has just a rich class right now. And for them to add Jordan Hall at the end, not saying they don't need him, but boy, does Florida need him. So he's an in-state prospect in Florida. Going to come down to those two rivals, Georgia, Florida, SEC battle for Jordan Hall. Florida needs to win that one. I don't know if it's going to happen, though.
And what you said at the beginning of this segment, I think, is on the money. You brought Billy Napier in to recruit. And then Billy Napier said, okay, you want me to recruit well? You got to give me some resources. You got to give me something to work with here. And so we watched the team photo come out for Florida, and what do we see? Blue polo there, blue polo there, blue polo there. Like, it was as many blue polos as it was guys in uniform.
Yeah.
And those folks in blue polos, guess what they're there to do? Help get top talent to Gainesville.
And he's flashed, don't get me wrong. I mean, Billy Napier has 2 5-star quarterbacks committed to him. Don't forget, Jaden Rashada in the 23 class and DJ Lagway in the 24 class. I mean, he's flashing. But for Florida to take it to the next level, I mean, anybody that goes to Florida recruits well. It's hard not to recruit well at Florida. But you have to recruit at an elite level if you're going to close the gap between UF, Georgia, Alabama, and the teams at the top of the SEC.
What does Emerald say? Kick it up a notch. At Florida, they're starting to try to kick it up a notch. So let's transition gears here a little bit. Tennessee, number 10 class, 25 commits, number 15 class a season ago. For a moment there, after they had beat Alabama and they were pushing leading up to the Georgia game, the number 1 in the country, it felt like maybe there was a lot of momentum for the Vols in the recruiting trail. At number 10, are you disappointed at number 10? Do you feel good about moving a few spots up from a season ago? Where do you put the thermostat at, or where do you take the temperature of for this program?
If I'm a Tennessee fan and I was in a coma for the whole season and I just woke up and I see Tennessee at 10, knowing that they were sitting at like the top of the rankings earlier, I'd be a little disappointed. But if you take a look at what is on their commit list, starting with Nico Imaliava, the quarterback, 5-star quarterback out of California, they address a lot of needs. It's a very efficient class. It's a class that they need to bolster the defense. Go look at their defensive line class. It's unbelievable. David Hobbs, 5-star all everything. He's in there. But let's rewind it and go to Nico. Nico's a recruit in the 2023 class. Yep. But where is he right now?
Oh, he's at Knoxville, I guess, wherever they are prepping for the bowl game.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's already throwing passes to Tennessee wide receivers and practicing with Josh Heupel's offense. So
doing push-ups, stepping on the tee.
The quickest way to get better, culture.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hashtag culture.
That's good stuff.
But the quickest way to improve your team is through the quarterback position. I mean, look at what Hendon Hooker infused into that Tennessee offense. So having Nico Imaliava already on campus doing bowl practice, he'll be prepped and ready to go to spring. A lot of people say, oh, early enrollees are great because they get to go through spring. Well, this one is going through bowl practice, then spring. He's going to have a lot of reps under his belt before we get to fall camp.
And also just getting adjusted to college life. Like, I've been there on report day in fall camp, and everyone's nervous. Everyone's sizing each other up. How do I fit? This is so weird. I'm not home anymore. Like, it's your first time as an 18-year-old being away from home cooking in your own bedroom, and now you're thrown into another setting, and it just takes a while to get acclimated, especially for a guy like Nico from California to Tennessee. It's like a different planet.
3 weeks ago, Nico was walking into a locker room full of high school kids that are nowhere near his level.
Yep.
Now, just like a month after his homecoming dance, he's in the locker room in Knoxville doing push-ups for stepping on the tee.
And that's going to pay dividends. That is going to pay dividends, being able to get your feet settled and on the ground just in the college life, and then be able to transition to football. I think that is enormous. So Volunteer fans should be fired up. Let's look at the rest of the SEC. You got A&M at 15. You got Arkansas at 17, South Carolina at 18, Ole Miss at 21. It's not the rest of the SEC, but looking from the top 20, 21 or so.
It's about where they should be.
Right. So of these 4, then, who are you keeping your eye on as we move towards national signing day, or the early signing period?
I want to keep my eye on Tennessee. Ole Miss, obviously, I love what Lane Kiffin's doing out there. He's going to hit the portal hard, so it's hard to judge exactly what Ole Miss does on the recruiting trail, because we know that Lane Kiffin might not enjoy high school recruiting as much as some other coaches.
Sure.
But he has a great selling point in the portal. He has proof of concept, like we've said. So I think it's kind of hard there to decipher exactly how you should feel about Ole Miss's recruiting class until you see the class that's brought in from the portal.
And some of it, too, I think, when you look at Tennessee, you look at schools like Ole Miss, with both Lane Kiffin and Josh Heupel, would you ever turn away top talent? Of course not. As many 5 stars you can get within your program that fit your culture and that you believe are fit for you, you obviously welcome that in. But I think there is something to be said for what you talked about with getting the right pieces. Like when you go and are going to go make dinner for yourself, you don't just buy everything in the grocery store. You go get exactly what you need. And so if you can get something else that's going to help you, you take it. But if it's not, contributing to what you need, I think that you're okay, and you don't get too caught up in the rankings.
We also shouldn't forget about Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Never. If we're 5 days out from signing day and we're not mentioning Jimbo Fisher, we're doing something wrong.
Yep.
This man can recruit. Say what you want about the team on the field. Jimbo Fisher is a recruiting machine. I'm interested. They got a little bit of a smaller class, so I'm interested to see what they do on signing day. But their big thing is going to be holding on to the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, David Hicks. So because of Texas A&M's lack of success on the football field, I feel like they're a little bit less aggressive down the stretch. They got to be more defensive down the stretch because of what happened this season.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do in the portal. I mean, a school that the portal will probably, or not probably, has caused them to lose quite a bit of personnel. You would have to imagine they'll go on offense to replace some of that already developed personnel and be able to plug and play a little bit more. 2 schools that I'm watching within that 4 that I just mentioned, Arkansas and South Carolina. I mean, Shane Beamer, I would commit to Shane Beamer today. Like, I'm fresh out of eligibility, maybe not so fresh, but I'm out of eligibility. I would play for him tomorrow if I still had a chance. So, I mean, he's a guy that's such a high-energy guy, high-culture guy, like just listening to press conferences.
They
won some big games. They won 2 top 10 wins, only I think the 7th program in college football history to win 2 top 10 games back-to-back as an unranked program. So that's a team that could make a play here as well.
Very Jekyll and Hyde type program, but to me, that shows that they're just a few pieces away. Now, it does hurt losing Jaheim Bell, losing the edge that they lost in the portal yesterday, but it's a program that's sellable. Like you said, a ton of energy out of Beamer. It's an SEC program, and they have some needs. They're hinging on what they do in the portal because it doesn't look like they're going to crush it in high school recruiting down the stretch, but I think they do have a great shot in the portal.
If they can get their kind of guys, I think they're a program to watch for years to come. I love Shane Beamer, what he's building down there. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.